Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, retired librarian turned homeschool mom, and this is my final Harry Potter review. So I'm going to be looking at Film 8 or Book 7 Part 2. So this is the last. I have covered everything else, including a whole intro on the issues with Rowling. As I say at the beginning, pretty much all of these. Recommendation: buy the books used, borrow them from your library if you don't already own them, like I do. The films are a little different because she doesn't have the rights to them anymore. She sold them. She has rights to the right to her world, say that. I have more details in other reviews. Check out my intro. It explains some of that. I also link this. This is my Amazon copy. This is the Blu-ray set. It's all 8 films and extras, not enough extras, as well as a link to the book Harry: A History, which explains a lot more information about these books. It's actually very, very interesting. It's written by a editor for a website called A Leaky Cauldron, and no, they don't support Rowling these days either. So, despite the fact that her name may be on the title of that book, it's because she does a giant interview. The author does a giant interview with Rowling. So as far as I know, Rowling herself doesn't directly benefit from that because it was an interview. So let's cover this mess. One more thing. If you want a far better detail than I'm giving you for all of this, check out another YouTuber, much better, far more entertaining than me, Dom Noble. He's actually one of my inspirations for a lot of things. He's somebody I will binge watch on occasion. He's not happy with Rowling either, but he does a whole overview of this stuff. It's far more detail. Not entirely child-friendly, as a warning. So that is Dom Noble. I put his name in the introduction, so you can check him out. So let's cover this. So this finishes the last book. So this ends the series. This gives you, basically it wraps everything up. You start at Bill and Fleur Weasley's house, which is actually where the last film ends. From there, they realize they have to go to Gringotts because they're looking for to basically go to the goblins to actually find the Sword of Gryffindor, which I don't believe they find. That thing has a tendency to disappear on them. But there's a whole big sneaking into the bank and not getting to any vaults, getting discovered, and a whole big massive escape, which I think is a lot bigger than in the books. And from there they end up at Hogsmeade, where they are rescued from being attacked by Azinforth, who is Dumbledore's brother. And from there they get the entire family actual backstory about how their little sister was very powerful in magic, which was not mentioned in Skeeter's book, but she was attacked by muggles and beaten and hurt, basically severely traumatized. Their father goes to prison for, I think, killing or attacking the boys who beat his daughter. But she was so severely damaged that she becomes a recluse, and their mother looks after her until she dies. And she dies right around the time Dumbledore is finishing school, so he's left to take care of his little brother, who has a thing for goats, and little sister. And he kind of resents it. He meets Grindelwald, becomes obsessed with the Hollows, wants to bring his mother back to an extent. He just becomes obsessed with power, regrets it. Ariana is killed when they're battling. Basically, they're fighting. So that's how she dies. Thus, Dumbledore feels extremely guilty, and him and his Azinforth have a massive falling out because, you know, you're an idiot and you got in a battle and you killed our sister. So you find all that backstory, and then Azinforth eventually helps them get back into the castle because they realize one of the last Horcruxes is a diadem, which is a little tiara from Helena Ravenclaw. And then you get her entire backstory, which I'm not going to go into. It's very, very depressing. It has to do with the Bloody Baron, who, yeah, they make look very jokey in the films. He's very depressed. As well as the Ravenclaw Ghost, who was actually Helena Ravenclaw's daughter. He was also very depressed. So, and eventually you end up with, this is the Battle of Hogwarts. The DA is hiding because eventually they piss off Voldemort's people, and because they defend Dumbledore and Harry, and then there's a battle between, and they mess this up in the film. In the film, they show just Snape and McGonagall fighting, and the reality is Snape's going up against not only McGonagall, but Flitwick and Professor Sprout, so it's all three of them, and they kind of cut those two out way too much. They're actually very decently powerful wizards. In fact, Flitwick's known to be extremely powerful. I mean, he's the head of Ravenclaw House. He's highly intelligent. So that's why Snape disappears, because he's being attacked by three people, not one. And then you pretty much have them prepared for a siege and a massive battle. And this is, Harry finds out about, eventually you have Harry, I think he goes in, I don't know if he's seen, obviously he witnesses Snape's death because Voldemort kills him. Now, why does Voldemort kill him? Voldemort kills him because he believes that by killing Snape, after he finds out that Snape killed Dumbledore, that by killing Snape, essentially he'll be able to take control of the Elder Wand. Because it's not, he has it, but it's not working for him. So, of course, he doesn't realize that it's Draco. And Harry has disarmed Draco in Draco's home in Malfoy Manor in the previously, in the previous film as well. The other thing that I forgot to mention that happens before this is the diadem is destroyed when they use a specific type of magical fire after they got in a big fight with Draco Malfoy and his henchmen, who are actually kind of dragging Malfoy around because he's pretty much, he's not very well regarded anymore. His family has issues, so they're not the top dogs anymore. So his former henchmen treat him like crap. One of them does die in this. Draco does not. I can't remember which one. I think it was Goyle. Could be wrong. They're interchangeable in some cases. So that happens prior to this, before they basically lock up the school. And then Voldemort kills Snape. He leaves a couple of tiers, basically, of pensive memories. Pensive, I'm probably mispronouncing that. To Harry, because Harry sees him, and you get the final last lines of everybody's obsessed with. It's like, what on earth are they? I'm not that much of a fanboy. It's always. They're obsessed with the term always. It's like, yeah. Essentially, yes. He always loved Harry's mother. He never stopped loving her. They get the whole backstory of how, unfortunately, I think it claims that how he told Voldemort the part of the prophecy that he heard, which Harry already knew because, you know, Dumbledore told him in book 5. So, and you get a much more backstory of him. This is where you get a bunch of these tier memories give Harry Snape's backstory. So his love with Lily and all of that doesn't, and I agree with the Dom on this. He's still a douchebag. He still abuses Harry like crazy through all the other books because he looks like his father. He couldn't respect the fact that this was the girl that he loved and sacrificed everything for. This was also her son, but no, he looked like his bloody father, except for those green eyes. But yeah, he's still kind of a douchebag. But he dies. Harry realizes, and this is where, when you read this part of the story, you can see this part of the film, you see C.S. Lewis influences here, along with religious. So Harry essentially sacrifices himself. He realizes that he's part Horcrux, so he has to die for everyone, and for basically in order for anyone to be able to defeat Voldemort. So he goes and sacrifices himself alone. I don't think he tells anybody. He goes into the woods and basically allows Voldemort to kill him. And yes, this happens at the end of, similar to something that happens in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where Aslan, the giant lion, sacrifices himself to save one of the kids, gets himself essentially tortured and murdered, and then comes back to life because there's deep, dark magic in its whole Jesus, I sacrifice myself for it. everyone, therefore I can destroy you kind of situation. And that's what happens with Harry. He goes to Limbo, where he talks to Dumbledore. He finds out some more information from Ghost Dumbledore, and basically he's the last Horcrux, so he sees the soul of Voldemort, basically hiding a small piece of sort of little thing. He's just huddled under a bench because he's been cut into pieces, essentially. Voldemort sliced his soul into multiple pieces to create these Horcruxes in order to not die. So then Harry comes back. Hagrid is basically presents his body to everybody, because Voldemort makes him. But one of the things you don't see in here that has to do with Narcissa is she realizes, and they don't show this in the film, that he's alive. And she whispers to him, because she doesn't know if her son's alive or not. And she's like, is he alive? And Harry's like, yep. And so she knows he's alive, and she doesn't say anything. She knows Harry's alive. So Harry's presented, everybody's depressed. You get the giant, and they overdo this with Neville Longbottom, who in the film they draw this out where he does this huge battle and eventually slices off Nagini's head. In the book, he's forced forward by defending Harry and Dumbledore, and Voldemort summons the Sorting Hat, shoves it over his head, and lights it on fire. And then, of course, the Sword of Gryffindor, because it keeps appearing randomly, drops on his head. He throws off the binding curse that's holding him still from Voldemort, and cuts off Nagini's head. So, you can see why that's screwed up in the second. If you've seen the second Fantastic Beasts film, you realize that was supposed to be some sort of human woman. Rowling has a very screwed up mind. But yes, Neville basically cuts the snake's heads off. Fates her. She, I think, is the last Horcrux. So, all of a sudden, Voldemort is mortal. He can be killed. So, basically, then Harry appears and like, I'm not dead. And you can't, he has this whole speech with Voldemort about, you can't hurt them anymore. Because his spells are bouncing off them. I don't think yeah, so basically none of the spells that Voldemort casts are working because Harry sacrificed his life for his friends and for all of the people in that castle. So similar to his mother's blood, now essentially these guys are being protected by Harry's. So and he explains this. He's in this battle with Voldemort. And then he also says, like, the wand isn't working for you. Now this is explained at the very end, after he's destroyed Voldemort. In the film, they have a giant, huge battle where it's epic and they're flying all over the place and they're destroying the school in the meantime, because again, they have to have massive destruction here. As all of the other films, they also have to make it far more exciting. In the books, we're kind of having this, it's very similar to the end of the book in book 4, where they're having their wands are locked and they're having a conversation. No, the wands do not lock in this because Harry has Draco's wand. His wand had broken, I think, in the course of their travels. I think Hermione fell on it. So he stole Draco's wand when he disarmed him. So that's the one he has. There's no Twin Core because Voldemort doesn't have his original wand. He has the Elder Wand, which was in the hands of Snape. Because Snape took it after, or because it wasn't in the hands of Snape. It technically, he stole it from Dumbledore's grave. So he has the Elder Wand. Only it's not working for him because it didn't choose him. And Harry goes into that explanation. And this is where stuff I've mentioned before. Why on earth wording is important. The wand belongs to the person who disarms and defeats, not kills, the previous owner. Again, Draco disarmed Dumbledore. Harry then proceeded to disarm Draco. The wand is loyal to Harry because it never belonged to Snape. Snape killed Dumbledore, he didn't disarm him. He was wandless when he died. So, the wand had already claimed Draco, and then Harry disarmed Draco, and thus the wand becomes loyal to him. And then they cast spells, and basically Voldemort's spell rebounds on him because the wand is not going to kill its master, essentially. So Voldemort dies. Now, most of the Death Eaters had, particularly once Harry was alive, they vamoosed. In the film, they just vamoose. There's no explanation. In the books, they vamoose because you have two sets of reinforcements showing up with the Battle of Hogwarts. You have the parents of all the kids, and then you have the centaurs, who are guilted by apparently Hagrid, because after Harry's death, because they've been staying out of it, and like, no, they finally decide to join the battle. So the remaining Death Eaters are destroyed, with the exception of the Malfoys. The Malfoys survive. By this point, Lupin and Tonks are already dead. You see the battle. Bellatrix is killed by Molly because she kills Fred. Yeah, she kills Fred Weasley, so Fred dies. Percy shows up. I don't think he shows up in the film. You see him. He's rejoined his family, but in the film, but in the books, he's talking to Fred. And Fred dies laughing because he sees his brother, because his brother's rejoined their family. And that's basically, he's telling his brother, you made a joke, I think is what it is, and he dies laughing. And that's when Bellatrix kills him, and Molly goes ballistic, as you would. As a mother, you're going to go crazy. And basically, partially because Bellatrix is going after Ginny. And yeah, Molly's had enough. She killed one of her kids. She gotta die. So she does. So Molly Weasley has a heroic moment, and she kills Bellatrix Lestrange. And essentially, you kind of the battle winds down. The remaining Death Eaters vamoose. In the film, Voldemort's body disintegrates, which is ridiculous because in the book, he got a corpse. And that's how they prove, he's dead. He's really, really dead. And they have they display his corpse because they want to, it's like he's dead. We can finally prove that he's dead this time. He's not just diminished in power and going to come back. He's dead. And that's how the film ends, which is not I'm not talking about the 19 years later. I mentioned that. I like that ending. Harry breaks the Elder Wand in half, and they're outside amongst the massive destruction of Hogwarts. And he breaks the wand in half and throws it into a pit, which might be a good idea. But what he does in the books is they're in the headmaster's office, and they're surrounded by all the portraits. They're wizard portraits of all the headmasters, including Snape. And he says, he uses it to fix his original wand, his Phoenix Feather wand. And then he says, I'm going to put this back in Dumbledore's tomb. And when I die, the magic dies with me. So it loses its power. And Dumbledore's painting agrees with this, essentially. And that's what happens in the books, which I think it's more responsible. And then, of course, I think the film, that's the whole, he also does all the explaining to his friends about the Elder Wand at this whole exposition at the very end. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Along with the massive explosion of his epic battle, which really isn't. It's more of a duel and happens really quickly. So I'm kind of of two minds about that. It's crappy adaptation, but I can get why they get it in the film. But again, they have a tendency to make things so much bigger. But, I mean, and then of course they do the 19 years later, which I actually like. That's the part of book 7 I'll reread. If I read book 7, is I like the 19 years later because it's a happy ending. Mostly you are going to find, if you see my book reviews, I don't like unhappy endings. If you watch, I do an entire book review on the Unicorn Chronicles. And that's one of the reasons that turned me off the ends of those films. Not that it had an unhappy ending, but I didn't like how they twisted the ending. That's a much better review because I know those books a heck of a lot better. And a deeper connection to some of them. But, I mean, I like the 19 Years Later. I mean, again, it's happy ending. I like happy endings. That's my point. I will actually one of those weird people who read the end of a book, and if it doesn't have a happy ending, I don't bother. The world is depressing enough. I like to read books with happy endings. So, that's the reason I like the 19 Years Later. I mean, Harry, if you're not familiar with this, and the film does it accurately. I don't think they show, no, they do, I don't think they show Teddy. One of the things I think they miss out is you don't see James Potter, James Sirius Potter, Harry's eldest son, being quite a bit of a little dick. He's a brat to his little brother, teasing him incessantly about being in Slytherin, and then catching Teddy Lupin, who is Tonks and Lupin's son, who was born the year of the Battle of Hogwarts, and he was raised by his grandparents, Andromeda and Ted Tonks. So basically James catches him kissing Fleur and Bill's daughter, who I think Teddy had finished school at this point. He had finished the year before, and she was in, I think, her 7th year. I think that's what they're explaining. So, like, James catches them kissing and is grossed out by it because I think he's 12. So, and his younger brother is 11, and I think their daughter Lily's 2 years younger than that. I enjoy that. I think they cut that from the film because it's kind of funny. It shows the character and Harry being a parent and telling James that no, him and Albus will never share a room if Teddy comes to live with them because they'd take the house down. So you get that banter of that he's happy, that Harry has a happy ending, that Ron and Hermione are happy. And I like that. I like seeing the characters have a happy ending. There's probably still some scars. They have kids. They get married. Not that you require that, but the evil is gone and life is going on. And I like that. So that is pretty much the end of the Harry Potter books. I enjoy them. They're not horrible books. I think I have book 4 here. This is my last favorite book. These are my paperbacks. They're not a bad series to read to your kids. They're really not, as long as you don't support Rowling. And with the older kids, you can't explain how you can enjoy a book series without necessarily supporting the author in kind of the ways you can do that. Particularly since it came out later, many, many years after the books came out. I mean, a lot of this came out in 2020. This is being filmed in 2021. And so I still enjoyed them. I still enjoy the films despite the fact that they're not always that loyal to the books. Again, that's a good teaching point. You want to compare books and films. And look at film stories and why they would leave things out there. It's a great discussion into film history and how films are made and books and adaptations, because there's a lot of bad adaptations out there. I will discuss them. That's something I enjoy. That's probably the reason I enjoy Dom Noble, because a lot of what he talks about I agree with in more ways than one. But yes, adaptations suck. I enjoyed these books for what they are. My husband read them after we got married. And they're good books. I'll probably end up reading them to my child as well as talking to her about them. It depends on the reading level and the maturity level of your kids, because again, these books get dark. There's death. It gets complicated and very, very dark with these, and you get a lot of different things. In fact, in the last 7th book, you get the backstory of Voldemort, which includes magical date rape. So, yeah, you can get some serious topics in these films. So, depending, of course, you can always skip over these things. I know in the Facebook group I follow, a lot of people have read these to their kids, and I may do that. I don't know. My daughter is almost 2 at this point, so we have a lot of time to figure that out. Do I recommend the books in the film series? Yeah. They're great family films if your kids don't mind some scary stuff. So judge your kids. If they're really sensitive, wait till they're a bit older. They're a great fantasy series. I enjoy the genre. So, yeah, I'd recommend them. Again, buy them new or buy them used, or better yet, borrow them from your library. Save some space. I own them. I'm not going to get rid of them. I've owned them for years. My dad bought the last 3 of them for me at the gas station near his work. So, and my husband got me the films a couple of years ago. I actually haven't watched them all, and I don't have time. I think I watched up to book 2. And I said in my first review of the first film, watching the film again after reading the book, realized just how abbreviated it is. So, as films, they're decent. Definitely read them both. So, there's a lot of explosions and a lot of actions and stuff in the films and they add stuff and cut out stuff, and it's a complicated mess. But they're still decent films. They're fantastic books for what they are. They're fantasy school books with a hero message. And no, they're not really religious. Though I think Rowling goes to the Anglican Church, but so do a lot of English people. They have a tendency to just say they're Anglican because that seems to be what the country is. So, but I don't know that much about Britain nor British. So, but again, enough of my rambling. Yes, I recommend them if you're into them. I mean, if you're into the fantasy stories and the British boarding school stuff, they're great books to read. If you're not, don't read them. It's your choice. The films are great. They're a good family film. And I have a cat meowing at the door. So, that is it for Harry Potter. Check out Dom Noble. Great channel. Lost in Adaptation. Other stuff. The Lost in Adaptation, he does quite a few things that are very entertaining. He's better at explaining the Harry Potter stuff than I am, despite the fact that he's not fond of Rowling anymore. He doesn't support her now either, because, again, what she is. But that is it for this review. I also have a bunch of other reviews, book reviews, film reviews. I have some adaptations for secular, non-religious Christmas stuff coming up in December. So, and then of course I have a bunch of other children's book reviews and homeschooling stuff and travel stuff. So like and subscribe to my channel if you like what you see. Thank you.